Man Up, a program dedicated to inspiring and helping men live lives of heroic virtue. And now, it's time to man up.
Welcome to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. We are broadcasting on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network. I am Joe Stopulos. And today I am going to discuss my family vacation, most recently, but more importantly, discussing finding God in nature, doing hard things together as a family, and a myriad of other topics that come from this recent trip that I went on with my family. And I wanted to share some of these thoughts and reflections with you. Let's start in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So I was out in the mountains for the past 2 weeks. We left on August 1st, got back on the 14th. And this is becoming kind of an annual tradition for my family. And I'll tell you, I get lots of questions. My wife posts kind of some of the summary of our trip as we go through it. And there's a couple of reasons for it. A, our family is curious on what we're doing. But B, there is some level of evangelization that comes along with it. It's really the only time she posts on Facebook, and basically the only time I post on Facebook are these trips. And most of the reason we do it is I would say for inspiration, right? We want to help people understand, especially if you've got a lot of kids like we do, that it is possible to get out and do things, right? That you don't have to be stuck at home all the time and be, oh gosh, we can't do anything fun as a family, or we got to stay really close. We were actually inspired by our own friends, which is why choose wisely who your friends are, because you'll become a lot like them. And we've been inspired over the years from our own friends, which is how we kind of got bit by the bug. And so now we're trying to kind of pass that on to others, saying there's a lot out there in this world, especially here in America, how blessed we are to be surrounded by such incredible nature that we have. And there's also from a Catholic standpoint, there's so many great things to see and experiences to have when it comes to many of the places to visit, many places that these great saints and heroes of our time have visited, and we can live through that, and we can grow through these experiences. So I'm just going to take an episode today, kind of talk through what we do and what I get and why we continue to do this, and some of these lessons that we learn from going out into the wilderness, going out into the mountains, taking our phones and turning them off for long periods of time, and what that does for us, each individually and then as a family. Again, I think this is something that both Kristin and I are fairly passionate about, that we're better people for this, where our family is closer because of these things that we're doing. And I think our relationship with God, especially in his creation, is better than it's ever been because of the types of things that we're doing, going out and seeking him in his creation. So we're going to head to a short break, and I will be back shortly to discuss all things related to trips to the mountains, trips to the forests, and living together as a family in a tent for 2 weeks. Stick around, we'll head to a break, and we'll be right back.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio comes from Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory. Caldwell Parish offers services that are unique to the individual while following the Catholic funeral rites. Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory, Des Moines' only Catholic-owned and operated funeral home.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by the Knights of Columbus, Borman, and Pfeiffer agencies, serving Catholic families in Iowa, offering life insurance, long-term care insurance, disability insurance, and retirement annuities. The Knights of Columbus is a fraternal benefit society able to provide financial security to members and their families. Learn how a Knights of Columbus agent Walker Borman can help at 563-689-6801. That's 563-689-6801 or KOFC.org. KOFC.org.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio comes from Mercy One, your expert circle of personalized care for all your health needs. With more care locations than anyone, your best life is their one purpose. Find your doctor at mercy1.org.
My help comes from you. You're right here.
Welcome back to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. I am Joe Stopulos. And as I mentioned, I'm going to discuss a myriad of thoughts I had when it comes to our family trip that we just got back off the last 2 weeks. Around, again, various topics, really finding God in nature, doing things together as a family, going on adventure, camaraderie with other people, in the mountains. There's a lot of things that I get out of these trips that I thought, you know what, I got to take an episode and just talk through maybe a little bit of the X's and O's of what we do, but then B, what do we get out of it? And there's so much that I get out of it and we get out as a family that I think is worth sharing. So a little bit of the genesis to this, and people ask us all the time, how did you even start doing this? I never went camping in my life. 0 times did I ever go camping until I was married. And I believe we had a kid. Yeah, I don't think Kristin and I ever went camping just by ourselves. I think Rachel had been born before we even went camping. I did not grow up in a family that did this. We didn't go on a lot of vacations. We didn't have a lot of money, so we couldn't really do that. But when we did, it was usually to a water park once a year kind of thing. And so this was definitely new for me. And we actually had friends, again, be careful who you choose with your friends because you're going to become a lot more like them. And we had friends of ours who invited us to go to Colorado with them years ago. This is when Rachel was first born. And they gave us a gift of showing us God in nature. And that was to Rocky Mountain National Park, and they took us under their wings, invited us into their family, and we had a priest that would always, at least 1 or 2 priests would come with us. We'd say Mass, and then we'd go hike. Come back, hang out as a family, and then same thing the next day. Wake up, have Mass together, or have Mass after we hiked. But we were exploring nature, and I think we clearly saw in that experience this connection between God and nature and finding God in nature. And how blessed we are in America to be able to, especially if you live in Iowa. If you live in Iowa, you are about 9 hours to 10 hours from Estes Park, which is Rocky Mountain National. You're about 9 hours from the Badlands. You're, I don't know, you can get to the Smokies in maybe 12 hours. You can get to a lot of cool parks in a day drive. And, even from there, you go further. Yellowstone's about 15. There's a handful of parks. You can get to the Utah parks, and again, about 15 as well. So we can get there in a day's drive, maybe 2, to a lot of these places because we're kind of centrally located. And so that was kind of the first bug that, gosh, there was something spiritual about nature and about especially these great, grandiose places in our country. John Muir, for those of you who don't know who John Muir is he's basically the founder of the national parks movement. He was, if you ever watched a documentary by Ken Burns, PBS documentary on the national parks, John Muir, especially at the beginning, is highlighted tremendously because he was really the guy who got it started, more or less. And he's got so many great quotes, and I'm going to share a few of them kind of throughout the day. But John Muir was this guy who understood the importance of finding God in nature and understood the importance of having that there's this part of us that longs for it. We are created for it. Very St. Augustine-like, that our hearts are restless until they rest in thee. God created us to know beauty and to want beauty. And he created the world beautifully. And we, again, in America, are lucky enough that we have the ability to experience this beauty. There's a few quotes. The first one I'll share is, in every walk with nature, one receives far more than he seeks. John Muir. We go out into nature, and God can speak to us so well there. There shouldn't be cell phones. You should have put away. You can see the beauty. God can speak to you. One touch of nature makes the whole world kin. I'm going to talk about that one a little bit later. We're going to talk about the camaraderie that I experience within this universal language that God speaks to us in nature. Again, is in our DNA. We have it in our DNA, and because of that, we need to respond to it. We need to fill it up. I mentioned on my personal Facebook post, essentially when you look at the beauty. Again, I was in Glacier. We were in Glacier National Park these last couple of weeks. And when you talk about the beauty of a place like that, there's no painting, there's no sculpture created by human hands that can compare. There's no movie that can move you to this level. There's no symphony, there's no rock concert that can take your breath away in the way that the mountains can. It can't. They can't do it. They lack the ability. My wife Kristin and I were just like, pictures can never do it justice, right? So we all understand that you've taken a picture somewhere and you look back on it, gosh, it doesn't even possibly compare. When we were in Glacier, we were on the Highline Trail, which is basically on the Continental Divide, at the top of the highest point in the park, and you just walk along it. So it's actually not a climb up. Usually these mountains, you're climbing up and you're going to do a peak. Well, this entire trail is essentially on the peak the whole way, so it's really neat. And we were just saying, not only do pictures not do it justice, our eyeballs couldn't even do this view justice. And the point of that is that we can't even, our brains can't even sometimes comprehend everything that's around us. And I'm not saying that in this case, right? So this is a very specific case of a very incredible view. You can have nature speak to you at a local pond. Now, you could just go to Raccoon River and sit in the pond and realize this is a beautiful place. This is a beautiful place. Now, obviously, I am very bullish on getting out to some of these great, grandiose places for various reasons. So one would be that, yeah, you can clearly see the hand of God working through this. Another quote from John Muir: God's love is manifest in the landscapes as in a face. God's love is manifest in the landscapes as in a face. Obviously, we are to love people, and God created people for us to love, to live in love, but the world as well, right? He created it beautiful for a reason. The colors. He created all of these things for a reason, and he didn't have to make it beautiful, but he did. He chose to. So there's this level of finding God in nature that we have, Kristin and I have been really, been hooked on. You go to these places and you cannot deny the existence of God. I just don't know how you can do it. I don't know how you can think that this is some random collection of atoms that got hit together at some really high speed, and then a lot of carbon happened to shift together, and then boom, we've got these beautiful mountains that happen to just, again, everyone agrees. This is beautiful. There's a line in The Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis. In The Abolition of Man, there's this book that they're discussing. In the book, C.S. Lewis takes some serious problem with this literature book, saying that basically two guys are looking at a waterfall, and one has the opinion that really the waterfall is just a waterfall. It's good. And the other one says, no, it's great. It's magnificent. It's beautiful. You cannot look at a waterfall, a beautiful waterfall, and say, yeah, it's okay. Because in his view that there is truth in beauty, that there are certain things that we as a society, as a people, as a human race, God has ordered us to know beauty, and those things are beautiful. So to say that this waterfall or this view of mountains is ugly, or I don't really care for it, then there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the mountains or the waterfall. There's something wrong with you for not understanding the beauty or being so jaded against it, because those things are beautiful. And so finding God in the beauty around you. Okay, so that's kind of the first part. The first part, and again, that's somewhat self-explanatory, I believe. I mean, I just know that for us, we seek out the beauty around us. We also, it really helps for us because you're forced to decompress, to turn the phone off. This was pretty substantial. Obviously, I went on a silent retreat about a month and a half ago, and I think that was 3 days without my phone. Well, this one, we were there. Our campsite did not get reception, and we didn't leave from like Sunday to Wednesday or something like that. And so during the work week's a little tougher. But yeah, literally no reception, and so you're forced to decompress. You're forced to just relax and enjoy what's around you. Okay. As far as the family trip part of it, and this is where I think this is actually important. We're doing things together, right? As a family, I think there's definitely going to be benefit to that we're physically doing activities together, and some of them are hard, right? So earlier this year we did a trip after we were down in the Southwest, and we had to hike this 8.5 mile hike round trip, that's not terrible, but it was a 3,000 foot elevation gain, which is, if you know anything about climbing, that's just like a serious elevation gain. And to have my 5-year-old do it, my 7-year-old do it, my 9-year-old do it, was pretty awesome. It was cool to see them do that. And same thing on this one. We went on a 10-mile hike, and it was pretty hot, but watching them do these things that aren't necessarily easy, and they don't complain the whole time. If they complain the whole time, we might not do it. They are pretty decent at it. But again, we do things together. Sometimes they're hard. Usually they're not. Usually they're enjoyable. We try to give them, waterfalls or mountain peaks that we're going to climb to. So we're doing things together, and let's be serious. We do bribe them a decent amount, right? So there's a lot of candy. There's a lot of ice cream on these trips and whatnot. But again, the point remains we are doing things together as a family. And there's this idea in The Lord of the Rings of going on adventure. And I think that Tolkien does a great job of showing it. Throughout the book, the hobbits long for the comforts of the Shire, right? They have this, their heart will go back throughout the book, throughout this long journey. But it is going on the adventure. It is going on the journey and getting out of the Shire that brings them to the people they ultimately are. You look at the formation of those people. And again, we already just did 2 episodes on Lord of the Rings, but if you look at the change in Sam and Pippin and Merry and Frodo, by the end of the book, the only reason they are what they became is because they left and went on an adventure. So there is some level of getting out, seeing new things, and becoming a new person, right? So you're getting out of your comfort zone, and you're doing things that you otherwise wouldn't do. You're going on an adventure, and you're going to come back differently. I mean, probably not substantially differently, but you're going to have a new experience in life. And again, if you're doing that as a family, if you're going on an adventure as a family, you're going to do something. You're going to grow together as a family in some way. You might meet somebody, you might see something. I know I could say with us, we try to in this trip, and I try to do it every time. I try to seek out again whatever the Catholic shrines are on the way, whatever the U.S. history things are on the way. So we followed the Lewis and Clark Trail pretty significantly this time. We've seen now almost all of the Missouri River portions of it, or as close to as we could. Seen a lot of that, and we've been to 2 Lewis and Clark museums. So we're obviously studying that stuff. We visited the Battle of Little Bighorn this time, so we studied that as well. Our kids have studied it, and then we listened to some talks on it, and then we went and we experienced it, right? So we experienced, and we had to talk through that. What does this mean to us as a people? Who are we cheering for? The Indians of the U.S. government, right? So this is like really deep conversations that we're having with kids, that we're going on adventure, we're looking at these things, and so there's a lot of growth happening, I think, for all of us having these discussions. These were forced conversations that we otherwise wouldn't have had. And I think that all of those things are good. And I think the idea of going on adventure is a good thing. One of the other things I think that I get out of these trips, which is just a unique piece, and I think it's unique to this, is the level of camaraderie. And again, I mentioned that the John Muir quote earlier, that one touch of nature makes the whole world kin. When you go to a national park, really anywhere, but I happen to feel it more than national parks because they're just packed, right? There's people everywhere. In fact, now they ticket it just because they can't get as many people in. You are going to be camping next to and hiking next to people who are vastly different from yourself. They're probably going to come from a different point of the country. There are a lot of people from the Midwest, but there are a lot of people from the East Coast and the West Coast and the South, people from all over. So you're going to meet people from different areas of the country. You're going to meet hardcore people who are atheists, people who are agnostic. You're going to see the coexist bumper stickers everywhere. You're going to meet some legit hippies. At the same time, you're going to meet mega-wearing, hat-wearing people. You're going to meet strong evangelicals. You're going to meet strong Catholics. You're going to meet Orthodox Jews. You're going to meet people from the Latter-day Saints community, all walks of life. We met people from all of these walks of life throughout, and we're all there for a common purpose, right? So even the people who are non-believing, even possibly working against the church, we're all there in unison, enjoying nature together. I think it's a really neat feeling that you become friends with people. I didn't talk politics with any of these people around the campsites. I got to know a bunch of them, exchanged phone numbers with a handful of them, and here we are having these conversations, having these discussions, but it's all around nature. It's all around the experience. It's all around, and we get to other stuff. We talk about family things as well, but here we all are united around God's beauty. Again, maybe they don't realize that. Maybe they don't know that's exactly what we're doing. But I think, gosh, how many other places in the world exist today in this hyper partisan era that we live in, where people come together and live in generally speaking, very unified, happy, put together. It's a beautiful community, and that's something that always speaks to me. And do we use it as a means of evangelization? Yeah, we all make sure they know that we're, we obviously pray before meals. We're going to, we talk to them about how we're going to church. We just got back from church, whatever those things are. There's room for evangelization, but regardless of that, it's this idea that here are all these children of God living together, and what is bringing them together? As well as beauty, right? So Bishop Barron talks so often about we have to lead with beauty. There's something within us that longs for beauty. How can we use that? How can we use the beauty of God's creation, the beauty of great art, whatever it is, beauty of liturgy? How can we attract people with beauty? Because clearly there is something within people that is attracted to beauty. The national parks in America are jammed right now. So much so that, again, they have to ticket. They've had to limit the amount of people who can come in because the demand is so high. The demand is high for beauty. The demand is high for people to get out and go places. Cardinal Sarah talks often about getting out of the noise, finding God in nature. How much a lot of these great thinkers just talking about, you've got to turn it off, you've got to shut it off, you've got to go, get out, get to the mountains. John Muir, the mountains are calling, and I must go. I think all of us feel that, right? I think a lot of people, we feel that, and because of that, that's, again, kind of from an evangelization standpoint, understand people want this. Another John Muir quote: "Thousands of tired, nerve-shaken, over-civilized people are beginning to find out that going to the mountains is going home, that wildness is a necessity." I think that that's a true statement, that we have to get out. We have to get out of ourselves, get out of this noise, and find beauty. And that is one of the things that we are always, I think that's when we go on these trips, we always realize, okay, we will get to know God better through his creation. We will also, for us as a side note, I think doing the Catholic thing, being able to find Catholic churches. I mean, one of the ones we went to was, 2 Sunday Masses. One was in the Blackfoot Indian Reservation. So again, kind of a neat thing. We're talking about the Blackfeet Indian. Black Elk is a guy who they're trying to get up for canonization. Black Elk actually fought at the Little Bighorn, became a devout Catholic later in his life, and it was an evangelist of the faith and brought it to the Indian people there. So I got to learn about that. Got to go to a church. I got to be a part of the Blackfoot community there. And then the next Sunday, we found ourselves at a Spanish Mass in Sioux City. Didn't know it was going to be in Spanish, but cool. Got to be a part of the Spanish community there, see how they do things, and that's a neat thing for us to be able to experience these. To experience these communities that we otherwise wouldn't have. So again, that's part of going on the adventure. That's going on the community. That is getting outside of ourselves. But again, I think that the overarching themes, finding God in nature. So again, it's not just one thing. It's a myriad of things. It's doing these hard things together. It's going on adventure. It's getting out of the Shire, getting out of West Des Moines, and doing fun things, doing hard things together as a family. And it's finding this camaraderie with other people who are outside of our normal social bubble. All of these things take place within these family trips. So again, we get a lot of questions on it. People do come up to us after we whether it's friends of ours or random people will reach out to us and asking us a lot on the X's and O's, which is probably a boring podcast and radio show that I'm not going to do on the X's and O's. If you ever want, feel free to reach out. Happy to talk through it about how we physically do it. But again, I think from the macro level, how it works and why we do it is the same. Is we need to get out of ourselves. We need to go into nature and get closer to God through that. So thanks for joining me. Stick around. We're headed to a short break, and we'll be right back.
Father P.J. McManus here from Be Not Afraid. Join me, along with Iowa Catholic Radio's Matt Wilkham, for our Footprints of God Holy Land pilgrimage. November the 12th through the 21st of 2023. We'll see the Church of the Visitation, touch the top of Mount Calvary, and visit the famous Western Wall. Plus, expert pilgrimage guide and Catholic convert Steve Ray will be right there to bring the Bible to life at every site. Don't miss Iowa Catholic Radio's 2023 Holy Land Pilgrimage. Early bird pricing available. Details at iowacatholicradio.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Knights of Columbus, Borman, and Pfeiffer agencies, serving Catholic families in Iowa, offering life insurance, long-term care insurance, disability insurance, and retirement annuities. The Knights of Columbus is a fraternal benefit society able to provide financial security to members and their families. Learn how Knights of Columbus agent Justin Wadley can help. 563-689-6801, 563-689-6801, or kfc.org.
My help comes from you. You're right here putting.
Welcome back to Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. Final thoughts on getting out into nature. What I just mentioned there, right? So I understand Glacier is a bear of a hike. We're talking about roughly 20 hours there, 20 hours back. And, it's about 3,000 miles in total we did. That's clearly not for everyone. And, you need 2 weeks to do that. While I do encourage that you should try to find those, I think the further away you get, the more the adventure grows, the more a lot of these things come true. Now, but to find God in nature, I mentioned you could go to, there are ponds in Des Moines. We hike Browns Woods every year. There are some spots within a day's drive of Iowa, there and back. The lowest hills in the western part of the state are on my list to do. We almost stopped. We ran out of time. But I've seen pictures. I know that's a gorgeous hiking spot. Very unique geological formation in the world. It happens to be in western Iowa along the corridor there of I-29. So lowest hills, northeast Iowa, about, we're talking 3 hours away. That's about 2.5 hours away. You go 3 hours away to northeast Iowa. And you can get into the Pikes Peak area. Everything from Dubuque up, Maquoketa to Caves are spectacular. There's so much to see even in our state. There's the Backbone State Park area. A lot of the state parks, especially in the Northeast, are just really cool. You can get to, obviously places in Minnesota that are spectacular, even down to the southern Missouri area. You have 5 hours. You can see some really, really cool stuff. So, again, you don't need to drive 30, 40, 50 hours. I think it helps. But, again, I think the important thing is just taking time to decompress, turn off the phone, and to find God in nature. And, again, as a family, if you've got a family, it also is a great opportunity to grow together as a family. Thanks for joining me today on Man Up on Iowa Catholic Radio. I am Joe Stopulos. It's time to man up.
Man Up, inspiring men to live out their call to holiness.